So we've got one more speaker before lunch. I just wanted to say, because I'm reminded constantly when I see Keith and others, or hear Keith and others, that one of the main problems I think we have as humanity is that politics and scientists have got somehow separated. So what he says is clearly sensible and right, but yet we have a bunch of politicians who seem unable to hear that. Perhaps they don't understand graphs. Perhaps they don't understand what's being said. I mean, of course, Donald Trump is such a perfect example of this, along with his fellow Republican candidates, none of whom believe in climate change. Well, how do we get here? Anyway, now we're going to go to Scotland, where they're doing things right.
It's great to be here. I'm a French resident in the UK. I've got a German name and a Polish mother, so I feel totally comfortable in this environment, and I do hope that these European events will carry on in the future. As we know, we're not certain. I represent the Scottish Islands Federation, which is a federation of islands that are mostly situated in the council area where they do not have an island council. I mean, Argyll and Bute, North Ayrshire and Highlands, although we have members in Shetland and Orkney as well. So, in Scotland, we do believe that islands can be leader in low-carbon communities because we feel that islands are perfect environment to experiment with new solutions. We can see the effect of new regulations of innovation very quickly, and we believe that the lessons that we learn in this way can be replicated on mainland communities. So that's one of our aims in our federation, to help islands realize their potentials as low-carbon communities. Recently, we've worked with 13 other island partners. Oh, this is going a bit fast. Not supposed to go that way. We've been looking at sustainable energy planning. It was a revelation for us because we've realized that in Scotland, as perhaps the rest of the UK, we don't approach planning in as much of a strategic way as France or Germany. However, in Scotland, we are very lucky to have an enlightened government, and this government has got a target of 500 megawatt of energy produced by community renewables. And I'm pleased to say that in 2020, we are likely to exceed that target. So as part of our project, this European project that I'll let you know about a bit more later on, the Scottish Islands Federation has held 8 islands carry out their own energy audits. We don't have access to these conseillers en énergie partagée like in France. We've had to train our own islanders in doing that, and we did this through a Scottish program called the CARES program, which is the Community and Renewable Energy Scheme, and is very, very, very good. Today, I'd like to speak to you about 3 islands in our federation. The Isle of Egg, where I live, which is situated about 3 or 4 hours drive from Glasgow, for those of you that don't quite know where it is, and about an hour from the mainland. And I'll be speaking about Mull and Iona as well, much bigger island and much smaller island, and see what we all are up to. So this is my island. Egg is famous in Scotland for being the first island community buyout, which means that basically almost 20 years ago, we bought our own island out of private landlordship, and that has been the main factor in actually developing the community. Before, we had absolutely no power in directing our lives, in developing. Now we're in charge, and we've done a good job. We've done a good job because one of the first things that we decided to do was to provide our own energy, because up until then, the landlord was the only one that had sustainable energy through a hydropower. The rest of us had to deal with dirty generators, costly gas lighting, very bad gas lighting, and some even experimented with powering the television with gas, which was not ideal, I can tell you. Oops, this is a bit fast. Go back to egg. Basically, the power was switched on 10 years after the buyout, which silenced all the people that were against community buyout, by the way. It was the first time that we had 24 hours power, and the scheme cost 1.6 million. You may think it's a lot of money, but to have actually built a cable to link us to the mainland grid would have cost £5 million, and no private utilities would have ever considered spending £5 million for about 100 inhabitants. Whereas, with doing this green grid, we actually became a pioneer because it was the first time that the energies of wind, sun, and water were integrated in that way. And we have become the subject of energy tourism, a bit like Samsø in Denmark. It was financed by the big lottery. Thank goodness you've all participated to it by buying your lottery ticket on a Saturday night. Highland and Island Development in Loch Harbour, Highland Island Community Energy Company, and the Scottish Household Renewable Initiative, the Energy Savings Trust, and finally the Highland Council. And I think there was some money from Europe as well. So, this is what it is. This is our green grid. We've got 3 hydros, one of which is very big, 2 others are quite small, and they produce most of our electricity. We've got 4 windmills, and we have photovoltaic panels. Now, since we started, we've actually tripled our photovoltaic array. The reason why is that sometimes in Scotland we do not have rain and we do not have wind, but in the summertime particularly, we have a lot of light. These batteries at the corner here is where we store our power for 24 hours. So basically what happens is that all these renewable energies are inverted in the system, and I'm actually very pleased to let you know that the company that has provided the inverters is a company that's based in your part of the country. It's called Wind and Sun, and for those that are in the know, they power the Croissant Neuf stage at Glastonbury every year with the sun. Steve Wade has become a very good friend of ours, and he's been doing a lot of work in Scottish Islands. So, our green grid. The green grid has been absolutely excellent because not only it provides us with our power, but it provides us with jobs. It's created 4 part-time jobs, which are really good for the community because it means that young people that have returned to the island are able to have an income doing something that's really useful and interesting. The green grid has been replicated in the neighboring islands of Muck, Rum and Canna. Canna is actually in the process of doing some windmills and solar, so that the archipelago of the small isles in which Egg is situated is likely to be the first green archipelago in Scotland. Another good thing for green tourism, and I'd like to also say that we've developed an app so that people coming to Egg will soon be able to do their own little energy tour and find out about our green grid. This is very fast, sorry about this. Back again. You can see that one of the interesting aspects of our green grid is that we are limiting the amount of power to each household, 5 kilowatts, and 10 kilowatts for businesses. And people would probably say, 5 kilowatts, is that enough? Well, I can tell you, we live a normal life now. We can use all our appliances. We can use everything we want. Simply, we have learned to do to spread the use over the day. So we don't put our hairdryer whilst we iron, not that I iron a lot, or whilst we have our washing machine. We just make sure that we are careful about the consumption of our appliances. We know what our appliances consume because we have a smart meter, and we are careful, and it's absolutely perfect for us. We don't need any more. In fact, those that exceeded the 5 kilowatt have been disconnected, and they have to pay £20 to be reconnected. So that soon taught people how to not exceed the maximum. I'll just have to say that sometimes, unfortunately, there's no wind, no water, no rain, and we have to depend on a backup a diesel generator. That's important as well. And we hope that with hydrogen technology, one day we'll be able not to have diesel at all. But I would say that our green grid has been 80% powered by renewable energy. So I was telling you about the multiplying effect. One of the big effects for us is that it's been enabling us as a community to enter the Big Green Challenge in 2010, and it had a massively motivating effect in getting the community to do the kind of things that you people in Frome probably take for granted, like local food production, which in a place like Scotland has to be done on the polytunnel. So we were able to give funding for islanders to purchase the polytunnel at a 50% funding rate. We looked at producing our hot water through evacuated tube, which is really useful because obviously powering water heaters is a very expensive way of drawing power from our grid. So we've been looking at minimizing our carbon footprint, and it's been really, really, really successful. I'm just going to rattle through the last slide now. And I'm going to talk to you about the Mull and Iona sustainable transport. Now, in my first slide, I was showing you that we did a community energy audit. Mull and Iona did one. And they found out that the transport situation was actually accounting for half or more of the household energy emissions, CO2 emissions. So with funding from the Climate Challenge Fund, they decided into looking at the potential for switching to a more sustainable form of transport, and they've had a really, really, really successful project all last year, which was awarded a green accolade by the Scottish Rural Parliament, because they organised hotspot event which familiarized the population of Mull, all 2,500 of them, with the concept of driving an EV vehicle. Not easy when you think about all the mountains and the distances in Mull, and only 2 charging points, one in Craignure and one in Tobermory. That's not a bit of a challenge. So they had these EV trials. They bought a Nissan Leaf, and they bought also an EV Berlingo to target the businesses. They educated community group and businesses into what it was to drive an EV. They had training days, because obviously when you have an EV, it's not the same thing as driving a normal car, so you had to have the firemen, all the sort of rescue services familiarized with this new technology. And also they looked into using EVs for the car club, like you do in Frome, and also for, also for a community transport scheme, because obviously Mull is a very big place, and it's not possible to have a bus every 10 minutes to go from Craignure to Finnefort in the south of the island. So what do? You have a community transport scheme which can be powered by EV, which can be powered by the Garmany hydro scheme that the Mull and Iona Community Trust have invested in, producing their own power. So they're closing the whole loop of the energy system. And also, they have done what is maybe something that you might consider doing in Frome, is to organize a lift share Facebook group. Very low-cost solution, but it means that people that are having to have 2-car households now don't need to have 2-car household so much, because they can share, and it reinforces the community bonds. It makes people sort of like have more sort of break the isolation, share the petrol, share the EV, share everything. So basically, that's been our experience in the Scottish Islands. I could tell you much more about what's been happening in the Scottish Islands, but I know that you all want to go for your lunch. So I'll just say thank you very much for inviting me here. And I'll just give you a wee list of websites where you can have a look at more of our
we can leave that list up so anyone can get it over lunch. So thank you very much, Camille, and thank you for coming so far. Camille obviously bicycled to be here, which was very noble of her. I made that up, actually. So during the next 3/4 of an hour, which is what we've got for lunch, please do make use of or visit the various stalls that are around here. So we've got till 1:30 when we'll recommence. I may or may not be back this afternoon. I left my daughter having a baby in my front room this morning, so I'm going to go and see how she's getting on. And then, I'm intending to come back later, but depending on how she's doing, I may or may not be. So thanks a lot.